Stargate SG-1 was the successful spin-off TV show from the hit movie Stargate. But oddly, despite being quite a successful show being exported across the globe and running for 10 years, it wasn't until the final couple of years of the show's run that it actually started to get some merchandising appeal. And it was Diamond Select Toys that bought the license to produce a range of 7-inch action figures. This range of figures was quite broad. They managed to cover quite a lot of the main characters with a lot of different variants, and it ran for a few series. Within this, they were able to build things like the Stargate itself, the Malp, and pieces of the world, which is really cool. The line was considered to be fairly successful, and they expanded into starting making figures of the spin-off show Stargate Atlantis. And it was around this time they decided they would expand the range by doing a 12-inch scale or a 1/6 scale range of action figures. And that's what I want to take a closer look at today, because sadly this line only went the one wave and only had 3 figures released in it. They had Jack O'Neill, Daniel Jackson, and Cameron Mitchell. This makes sense for a first wave. You want essentially the stars of the show. Jack O'Neill had been the team leader since the very inception of the show. Daniel Jackson likewise had been the co-lead. And of course Cameron Mitchell had come in to replace Jack O'Neill in the later seasons. And of course, from a manufacturing point of view, it makes perfect sense because they all had roughly the same body type, they all had the same outfit, so really the only tooling you're paying for is each of the different head sculpts. But in a way, I would say this is one of the weaknesses of the line, is that essentially you are getting the same figure 3 times over with a different head. What would have been nice, of course, is to have a bit more variation and diversity in the line, so it would have been nice to have, say, Carter in there and Teal'c, and have your core team, your core membership all together. This would have made the line a bit more appealing, a bit more varied, and worth investing in. So I think it's worth setting the scene and the context of the time. 1/6 scales at this time were really sort of in the sideshow collectibles mould, and this is what they've gone for here. Hot Toys were emerging and making their mark, but this was kind of the industry standard at the time, and I think the overall presentation of these figures is actually very, very nice. There's good attention to detail on the costuming, lovely little things like the logos on the patches on the shoulder, the outfits themselves are screen accurate, and you know they're nicely tailored and they are presented well. And one of the things I love about this range is their boots. I've not seen this done before, but the boots are a single rubber piece that actually have laces in them. So this is more of a Hot Toys kind of standard that we're seeing here, and this is really a really nice addition, and it really just sets the figures off. And I think this is lovely. The central jacket, of course, does unbutton, and you can see the black sort of t-shirt that they've got underneath. Again, screen accurate and you know, a nice touch. One of the things I should mention, of course, is that there are several pockets on this outfit that are perfectly usable. So I've put things like the walkie-talkies and some of the extra guns and things in these pockets to bulk them out a little bit. If I had a criticism though at this stage, it would be that I wish they had perhaps added some extra little details in there. Sorts of things like, you know, the tactical vests or sort of like, you know, the gun belts that they have and things like that. Jack O'Neill, of course, you know, famously wore a cap in the show, and Daniel Jackson had his floppy hat thing in the first couple of seasons. So I think things like that would have been a nice addition to just sort of you know, diversify the line a little bit and make these characters look a little bit different on the shelf. Of course, one of the crucial elements of any 1/6 scale figure is the likeness of the head sculpt. I think this is close enough. I wouldn't say it's a spot-on likeness. You can tell it's Richard Dean Anderson. It definitely has a look of Jack O'Neill, but I wouldn't say it's very screen accurate, to be honest. The figure does come with a nice assortment of accessories. He has his ZP-90, I think it is, his ad Nicotel, and a walkie-talkie. He also has his gate dialer or decoder, the thing they use to put in the security code so they can get home. And as you can see, this is on an elastic band that just wraps around his wrist and, you know, looks pretty nice. The detailing on the gun itself is really nicely done. There's plenty of paint apps here, and it feels perfectly to scale and looks really solid. A quick note on the hands though, as you'll see they are a solid plastic piece, so there is no flexibility in the fingers whatsoever. There's a little bit of detailing in there, but not an awful lot, not the kind that we'd associate with, say, a Sideshow Collectibles figure. But thankfully they are moulded so they can hold their weapons perfectly well. Sadly, they only do have a swivel at the wrist, so there's no hinge, they can't go forward or backwards, but they do swivel. And of course, here's Jack with his Zach Nicotel and his walkie-talkie. As I said, the hands are posed perfectly well so they can hold their accessories just nicely. And I think you can get a different range of dynamic poses out of these figures, because the articulation overall is very good. It's certainly what you'd associate with, say, Sideshow collectibles at this time. So next up we have the Daniel Jackson. Again, it is the exact same outfit, a lot of the same accessories, which we'll get onto into a minute. So the only real differentiating thing here is the head sculpt itself. I am pleased that they opted to give him his glasses. In later seasons, Daniel Jackson stopped wearing the glasses, but I am glad they decided to go with this look, as it does feel like one of the defining elements of the character. Now, in terms of the likeness itself, I'm not convinced. I have to say, I think this is probably one of the weakest of the three. There are moments from certain angles where it does look like him, but overall, aside from the hair and the glasses, it doesn't really capture the likeness of Michael Shanks. Now, in terms of accessories, unfortunately Daniel is very, very light. He comes with a pistol, his Zach Nicotel, and a walkie-talkie. I'm not sure if this is a lack of imagination or a cost-cutting exercise, as this is very limited and very repetitive of what we've already seen. The only new piece here, of course, is the pistol, but again, I wouldn't really have defined Daniel Jackson as being a character that, was famous for his use of guns, although it's nice to have. I think, if you looked at the 7-inch scale, there was a lot of things they could have taken inspiration from. They got it really right in that range. So, it would have been nice to say a crystal skull, or say an archaeological textbook, or, even his Eye of Ra medallion. Anything like that would have been great. Because as it is, it just looks a little light, and it doesn't really feel authentic to the character. It doesn't feel like you've got anything that really defines the character here, that's unique to the character. Finally, we move on to the Cameron Mitchell. Again, same outfit, same look, but obviously brand new head sculpt, and some different accessories with this figure as well. So looking at the head sculpt, I feel like we're off to a much better start this time around. I think this is much closer likeness to the actor Ben Browder than the previous actors. So I feel like it's probably the best of the three, although it still isn't perfect, to be honest. It's still quite shy of being a really solid likeness. In terms of accessories, quite generous here. We've got an assault rifle, walkie-talkie, Zach Nicotel, and most impressively, Excalibur. This is really screen accurate, and a bit of a surprise, to be honest, because it seems like a bit of effort has gone into this. One note I would make, though, is about the assault rifle. It looks incredibly thin to me. That doesn't really feel authentic. Unless they are that thin in real life, I'm not a gun expert, but this looks a little bit flimsy, and as you can see, mine has become a little bit bent there as well. Overall, I think they've made a good effort with Cam here. I think they've given him lots of different accessories to kind of diversify him a little bit, and I think, again, the presentation overall is very nice. So final thoughts, I really like this line. I wish that it had continued. I think it could have gone on to do many more characters in the range, and I really wish they kind of started a bit bigger than they did. I'm not saying that is the reason why they didn't continue, or perhaps they didn't sell that well, but I think if they'd been a bit more varied, if they put Teal'c in there, say, just to diversify the line, just like make the collection look a little bit unique, because at the moment they do look quite homogenous, they all look the same. It is only sort of the accessories and the head sculpts that set them apart, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I just wish there'd been a little bit extra there. Maybe a tactical vest here and there, maybe a different cap, or different hats, or whatever it could have been, just to diversify this range. Overall, I think the likenesses are probably the weakest part of these figures. As I said, obviously I think the Jack is okay, the Cameron's probably the best, and the Daniel is quite off in my opinion. But the articulation is great on these figures. I didn't talk a lot about it in the video, but it is exactly what you'd expect from, say, Sideshow at this time. It's very solid articulation. I think the accessories they're giving them are fun and good in the main. Again, the exception being Daniel, who seems to have been ill-served. But otherwise, I think this is a really fun line. I wish, it had continued, because I really like these figures, and I was a big fan of the show. So I think it's a shame it only went to 3. And it would have been really fun to see them diversify and have some enemies in the line, and maybe some serpent guards would have been really, really cool, but sadly it wasn't meant to be. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as I'll be posting more videos soon.